What's up, y'all? You listen to the Omi Show. I'm Omi Bell, and I'm so excited that I have an amazing CEO here, an amazing creative. Her name is Jenifer Storey, and her brand is Unknown Union. It is an amazing fashion brand. We're going to talk all about it today. Welcome to the Omi Show, Jenifer.
Thank you so much. Completely excited to be on today and just chat with you.
So, okay, you could be doing anything in the world. Okay. In fact, you were a lawyer already, so you lived that life. But you could be sailing the seven seas. You could be climbing mountains in foreign lands. You could be, just having a corporate job as you had at one time. Why did you and your brother, is that right? Your brother?
Yeah,
Okay.
so my
This
brother's my co-founder.
decide to start Unknown Union. And I'm curious about the name too. So if you want to wrap that in there anywhere, I'm curious.
Sure. So there's a lot of, I think, different reasons why we fell into it. But yes, you are right. So I spent a decade as a corporate attorney, worked as in-house counsel for some large companies, and did like international regulatory compliance and mergers and acquisitions and all that really fun corporate stuff. Not sure if it's fun, but all that corporate stuff. And so when I sort of segued into fashion, it was really just looking at my life. So our father passed away, and I started to think
Okay.
about life from the perspective of death, right? And not just how I was going through each day, but how my days counted as I walked that journey, because death is inevitable, right? So when I started looking at things like that, my brother had a similar path. It ended up that we just started thinking of what is the wealth that we're acquiring, right? So how are we determining what wealth is? What do we want to fill our days with or fill our buckets with? And part of that was just we decided that there was this transition, that there was a better way to spend our time and our days. There was a better way to make money for us. And there was sort of more purpose that we could find. Now, I don't think it's everybody's journey, right? For some people, finding that purpose is in practicing law, is in doing finance, is in journeying in that corporate ladder. Just for me, it wasn't.
Mm.
And
I
then I guess, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I have all the questions. We got time. Go ahead.
No worries. And then I think in terms of how we fell into fashion, it was really that we would always, our father was a big historian, so he read us books, right? We grew up on A Tale of Two Cities and Treasure Island were kind of our nighttime stories. And one of the first gifts that he gave us when we turned 18 was a book by Chancellor Williams. It's called The Destruction of the Black Civilization. And that book really changed, I think, both of our perspectives on culture and history. Sort of what we learned in school wasn't the full history of the world, wasn't our full human history. And that kind of sent both of us down this personal quest to learn more, to discover more about cultures and people and history around the world. And then when we would have discussions with people, we realized how unique that those conversations were. Most people didn't either have the access because those sort of books and ideas are stuck in university libraries, or they just didn't have the exposure to that. And when we started thinking about, again, living this life and this different way of wealth, it was really this discussion around how do we bridge that gap? How do we take things out of those dusty art archives and university libraries, and how do we put those among popular culture? And that's sort of why we decided on fashion. It's something that everybody has. It's universal in how you clothe your body, right? So everybody wears it, and even in how we wear fashion, it sort of tells our own story. So we thought, what a creative way to tell human stories and to share human experience. And that's kind of why we created the brand.
I love that. I think that I think when people think of fashion, right? It's like fashion and then there's clothes. How would you how would you define though? How would you define like what is fashion? Like, and because I think that when we watch TV and like pop culture and reporting on brands and titles and high end brands versus fast fashion and what that means. Um, through your lens, though, as a creator, how do you view fashion? Like when I say Oh, fashion. Like, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, to me, I think it has all those utilities, right? So we do have clothes in their very elemental form. They're meant to create warmth. They're meant to cover the body in some way. But I think that just from the existence of clothing, people have always worn it in their own way, whether that's fast fashion, whether that's Goodwill thrifts, whether that's high end status. There's still displaying a part of themselves with the colors they choose, how they drape it, what they're deciding to do with those pieces. So I think there's still a lot of individualism even within fashion as a concept, right? Clothing as a concept. But the fashion industry, I would say people look at it when they hear that word. To me, I see more of the art form, right? Or the industry. There's two sides of that. So, from an industry standpoint, I'm going to think of what's the big brands versus fast fashion, what's sustainable versus not sustainable. And those are the industry things that are going to come to mind for me. And then I think that there is still an art form that's done and practiced by a lot of creators. Doesn't mean everybody does fashion for that, right? Some it's just churning and numbers and making those numbers count. But I do still think you have a lot of small and independent brands and even some larger brands that take time and look more into the art form of fashion.
It's no coincidence that your last name is Story. I heard you talk all about. I heard you talk all about Story, how your dad brought that forth for you and your brother, and how you're bringing that forth through your creation, right? So when you talk, tell us a little bit about the method behind like how you create, the materials you're thinking through, what it feels like for you, right? Like I think because when we talk about like creating, we talk about it, we have to find words for it, right? And sometimes it's like not words, like like there's so many ways to define warmth when you think of storytelling. There's so
Yeah.
many ways to define, how to be when you're happy, what things make you feel like. I'm curious, like if we can get into that a little bit, like how you approach creation, the methods that you and your brother are using that you mentioned before you want to talk through. Yeah, tell us a little bit about
Yeah, I think that so most fashion companies, just so you guys have a little bit of background on the industry, but most fashion companies, they design for the purpose of design. So they might pick the colorways that they're going to use that season and then design based off that palette. They might pick the trends that they think that are going to be popular and design off that palette. So and then they'll create something. And once they create their product, then the marketing team will come in, or they'll come in and they'll say, okay, who is this for? Who wears this? Who's our consumer? What type of story are we telling them? We're kind of the opposite. So we flip everything backwards and we start with the story. So almost all of our collections, I'd say now this has changed throughout the years, but we're about between 6 months and I think our longest one is 4 years of research that
wow.
we do into different cultures, indigenous knowledge systems, graphic writing systems. We work with an amazing art director, Dr. Barbaro Martinez Ruiz. He's one of the foremost authorities in indigenous African arts, as well as a curator for a lot of art exhibits around the world, professor at Oxford, Harvard, bunch of places. But he helps us to keep those stories responsible as we're doing this research. So we find just narratives as we're going through life. I do get to travel, which is an amazing thing. You were talking about why are you not climbing mountains? I do get to do that. So selfishly, it's very cool that we kind of travel to these different places. We read different books that are recommended to us, or just that we find on our own through our own study and self discovery. And when we find stories that we feel have a big import for I think humanity as a whole, then we dive in deeper and we start dissecting those stories. And what we try and do is distill those narratives into a more synopsis or a summary that's easier to digest. And then we distill those short summaries into design. So that's kind of the work process. It really starts with the material and then it goes into the design process. The design process is where we get a little more creative, but obviously that still has restrictions, right? Because there'll be times that my brother and I think, oh, this would look really dope in red. And then our team will come back and Dr. Barbaro, for instance, will say, yeah, but red has the exact opposite meaning of what you're trying to say within that cultural context. So we're like, shoot,
Mm.
okay, like back to the drawing board. Let's think through that. So everything down to the colors we use, a lot of times, even the materials that we choose. We're doing a collection that's coming out in the fall that's around a 12th century Japanese Buddhist monk. And so, some of the material that we're using is Japanese salvage denim to tell that story. So we try and put a lot of thought into every detail throughout the construction and the process to make sure that we're speaking and respecting the stories that we're telling. So it's a long process, but there is that moment, I think, of excitement. I am such a nerd that from the reading to being in factories, I love it. Like, I love watching machines work and seeing kind of new technologies that are coming out in clothing, or just how things are made in that process. So it's a fun journey for me. But yeah, it's a long one.
I love that because and this is one of the things I think is kind of missed sometimes. Like, if you're not a person that's deep into fashion, then you're a person that's kind of watching Fashion Week happen or you're watching fashion shows happen, and you're sitting there, you're thinking like, that don't look cute. Like you just
Yeah.
like, I don't understand why this thing looks like that. Why is this big bubble that this person is wearing walking across the runway? Why is this like, are people gonna wear this in real life? Like, people are, the thought is, I would never see that on the street. Where they're gonna wear it? And I think the missing part is like viewing it as art, this creation journey that you're speaking of to tell a story. One thing that's big about fashion is respect. When you talk about certain levels of fashion, is about respect. And families are behind a lot of the big high end brands that everybody knows. And it's
Yeah.
hard to even break into the luxury arena when you talk about the families. It's just very tight knit, long term, been around for a long, long, long time. Families. Do you and your brother see yourselves as wanting to being a part of the luxury high end market? Do you feel like you're creating a lane for yourself? Do you feel like you just like, we're creating the story and we're thinking about culture versus industry? Like, how are you looking at where you sit in the world of fashion?
It's funny you asked that. So we just, this past November, opened up a store at the Beverly Center in Los Angeles, and we're on the seventh floor. And so next to us is Burberry, and across from us is Ferragamo, and to the right is Louis Vuitton, and we have, Balenciaga and all those brands. So we're surrounded by all these luxury brands. And somebody asked us that same question, like, how do you feel sitting among these brands? And I think we have very much an Occupy Wall Street was the first term that came to our head, right? I mean, there's no like black owned brands. That's like number one. There's very few, a lot of them have creative directors, and I think they take a lot of influence from black creators, but there's just very few, especially not on that floor. And most of them aren't independent, they're huge corporations. So we definitely feel we belong on that level. We put a lot of thought and work into quality and fabrics and material and construction. We're trying to create garments that last, not garments that you throw away or that get ruined after season. Like, for us, just as a story should be passed down, we want our garments to be able to be passed down. So we put a lot of effort into that. So I think we feel like we belong in terms of that level. However, we definitely are on we're doing things our way and it's our own lane type vibe, right? We've always been like that, even with the law firm that our family owned for a number of years, and our mom still practices law. It's creating an environment that you want to work in, creating an environment that you feel others want to work in, and that's an example of that, right? So we always say we like to do good work with good people, and our corporate side is built around that. So our team is like family to us. The people that we partner with, we try and partner with people who are doing really cool stuff and creating in a lot of interesting ways, or working with their families or other kind of communities that we can help develop is really important to us. So I think that from that perspective, we feel like we're in our own lane and we're okay with that. We don't really follow trends. We don't even follow seasons. We just release things as they come out, as those chapters get done, and we feel it's time to put that story in the store to the general public. So yeah, we kind of just given up on any of that. We don't even design for a demographic. So even in our design process, we're not like, oh, a 18-year-old skater will wear this. Like we just create and we try and design very thoughtful garments, and whoever wears it, that's our customer. We don't have
I
a,
love
a
that.
bias around that. Yeah.
I love that. Well, you definitely deserve to be there. Okay, 100%.
Well, thank you.
One of the some of the things looking at the pieces, I love some of the just really clean shapes. And I haven't had a chance to get my hand on the material, but it looks like it's really fluid. I think that is one of the things I'm like, yes, this is what I can feel great in. I can put a belt here and I can roll. Um, and I can
Yeah.
create different looks out of this one piece, which that's another thing that I love. Being able to create different looks out of one quality piece is essential. And that for me as a customer keeps me coming back to a brand no matter what the cost is. It's like it's not something that I feel like I want to throw away. I want to hold it. Like you said, I think the story part of what you're saying is essential. Just like the idea that you're not buying a just like a random garment. You're actually wearing a story, and
Yep.
that becomes a part of your story.
Yeah.
And the power and the energy from the story that you created with the garment now actually takes a new chapter in the lives of the customers, right? Like I could that world of just play and experience on a being able to like take a garment and feel that. I think that's amazing. So like kudos to you and your brother and like what you are creating that is beyond just the moment or beyond the garment. And look, stories come out when they come out, right? Stories are written and
Yep.
made to be consumed and engaged in and lived through. And so that's the beauty of not worrying about a season or like when, who it
Yeah.
fits. I love that. I think that's amazing.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
so the idea of like, okay, being a corporate lawyer and now doing this, I often tell people you're not starting over, you're starting from here. So you're starting with everything that you know. What are some things that you have had to take into this business from being a lawyer?
Yeah, so much. The You kind of made 2 points that sparked some things in my mind. But my mom used to always say, from the time we were little, she was an attorney. But she would always say, "Oh, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up," even as she was practicing as an attorney. So she went to film school. She made an award-winning documentary film. She did all these other things. She's like, "I'm going to sculpt this week." And so I think that was sort of ingrained in us. And so your point of, yeah, you're not starting over, you're starting from. You take those things with you, but you can explore other things. We don't have to be limited to one box that we feel others put us in or that we feel safe in. It's okay to explore things outside of your box. I think it's such a vital point. Um, but for me, with respect to the other segue and transitioning what I take, it's definitely helped, right? I personally get the biggest kick out of going into really big boardrooms when we have a partner or some other people on the other side. They have all their attorneys around the table, and I come in, with my beautiful melatonin and my like style, and usually I'm in like kicks and like I wear Converse all the time. So I'm usually in Converse or combat boots and like my designer style. And it's interesting when they start talking to you and sort of that tone that they take or this feeling of authority in terms of
Mhm.
who's controlling the conversation until I start speaking or until Jason starts speaking and questioning those things within the contract or coming back with those words that they wouldn't expect outside of somebody who has practiced law, and their whole tone changes, right? So that's always a fun event for me. I enjoy doing that. But I think that those things have really helped, right? So from forming a business to how you do corporate structuring, that's all in the back of my head. I still think I'm in startup mode. However,
Mhm.
even attorneys still run startups like a startup. Sometimes you're not going to have your bank account open for the company right away. You're going to not have that open until somebody's like, oh, where's your bank account? You're like, shoot, I got to run to the bank and open
Right.
that. Sometimes you might have like take a month to get your operating agreement in place or those other things. You're like, oh, maybe I should trademark that, right? Let me call my friend who's a trademark attorney and get that on, even though I probably should have done that a year ago. So I definitely think even as an attorney, I still run like a startup. However, those things help to be able to really understand the roadmap, right, in terms of corporate structuring, to be able to understand the agreements that you're getting into is really helpful. So I always strongly suggest that people use attorneys for that. I have a friend in the music industry, and we were just talking the other day about a lot of times, especially with artists and creatives, we're good on doing things on a handshake deal. I still do them all the time. You got to judge
Mhm.
somebody's character and you're like, hey, we're partnering on this, we're collaborating on this. The problem is sometimes when money gets involved or those things pay out, all of a sudden nobody remembers the terms that they agreed to. And it's not necessarily always coming from a place of bad faith. There really can be differing views on how you think things went or what you agreed to. But I think contracting those things, even if it's a simple, hey, here's the bullet point of how we want to work together, those help in the long run, for avoiding problems in the future. So it's definitely things I carry with me, and advice I give to other entrepreneurs as well as they're going through their business. Get a good accountant, get an attorney. There's a lot you can do on your own, typically business formations, if it's a single partnership and things like that. But yeah.
Awesome. We're gonna get everybody keep it locked right here. We're gonna come right back with Jenifer Storey, these one of the co-founders of Unknown Union, an amazing fashion brand. I want to know what you think about these red boots. So keep hold on. Keep it locked, stay right
Okay.
here. All right, y'all. We gotta take a quick break. We're gonna be right back after this. You listen to the Omi Show. I'm Omi Bell. It is Sunday. I love Sundays. You should love Sundays because you're here with me. We'll be right back. And we're back. You listen to the Omi Show. I am Omi Bell. I'm here with Jenifer Storey, the co-founder of Unknown Union, an amazing fashion brand, which is now you can go buy it at Beverly Center on the 7th floor. Put some respect on their name, okay? They are. I love that a black-owned brand being there, deserving being there. I want to say congratulations, but at the same time, so congratulations, like from me to you, human to
Yeah.
human. At the same time, to the world, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, it's deserving. I wouldn't be saying congratulations to Louis Vuitton for opening up a new store, right? And so I think like
Yeah.
things get, it gets tricky there where I'm like, oh no, that was supposed to happen. But congratulations to you and your brother for just the amazing journey that you're on and bringing this awesome brand to the world.
Thank you. We're excited to continue to let it grow. Hopefully people will dig what we're doing, follow what we're doing. And we're excited about that. But yeah, please come through if you have a chance. You can buy on unknownunion.com or at unknown union on our Instagram. But please follow. We definitely love telling stories. Our point is creating conversation. So the more conversations we can create, the better with everyone. But we were talking about those boots,
Yeah,
I think,
okay.
right
These
before
red
we left
boots,
off.
okay. Let
Yeah.
me for a second though, I'll be honest. For a second, I thought about it, but then I said, you know what? They don't look like that for plus size girls. My legs might be a little bit too big
They
for
do
for
look
them.
tiny, right? Like I don't understand at the top where the like calf goes. I'm like, where does somebody's calf go? I think you have to have really straight legs. I haven't figured that out yet. I haven't seen enough influencers wear them that have like curves. So we'll see. Maybe one will show me up after the show and be like, no, they totally fit like a thick calf. But I haven't seen it. They're special. I don't even know how to describe it. I do love when people take fashion to a new level and express themselves fully. I definitely think that there's this merger right now happening between metaverse fashion and sort of these avatar
Mhm.
characters as well as fashion like in the real world. And I think that's what those boots are playing off of, right? That's what they remind me of, at least personally. So in that sense, I think it's cool. Like people want to live in both like the real world and their virtual world and create sort of these different forms and images of yourself. hey, more power to it, right? Like if you love it, I love it. Like you like it, I love it kind of concept. But I haven't figured out if I could do it yet. However, they do look super cushiony, right? They look like you could bounce really high in those things. The foam on them has to be 3 or 4 inches thick at the bottom. So yeah, they're special.
What's interesting is that they do give me a sort of cosplay vibe, but
Yeah,
I think that like to see more people adapt them, I think that was the interesting part. And I think people are just looking for interesting, unique things that not everybody has, right? And I think that's a part of like high end fashion, where it's like, and I mean, like considering, right, in the realm of what would be considered high end, they're actually not that expensive. I think that just looking at where you would wear them and how they would be functional, like we were saying earlier about being watching the avant-garde shows and thinking like, what, how they could have made it into an everyday piece? Like this
yeah,
definitely is not for everyone. Speaking of that, okay, Unknown Union, the
yes,
name.
the name.
And let me also say that I don't think you always have to have a reasoning behind your name, but since you are a storyteller and a creator of story, I'm curious about the name.
So the name does have a meaning, right? And part of it, it's all built around storytelling. It's the fact that oftentimes when we learn about some other culture or some other type of experience, even somebody else's journey, all of a sudden, just by hearing that between the storyteller and the person listening and the listener, there creates a bond between them, right? I can view you in a different way. I have more information as to which to have a path of empathy. I have a better understanding in order to make a connection. And oftentimes we find similarities between our own journeys and the journey of another, even if that journey of another was 10,000 years ago or a philosopher from a different time. We can say, I can understand that, or I can connect to that, or I can see how that works within my life. But there's not really a word for that. So that's where we came out with that's the unknown union that's created between people when we share stories. So that's what the name came from.
Wow. Well, that speaks directly to what I was saying a little earlier about coming in contact with the garments, right? It's like coming
Yep.
in is the person coming in contact with the garment that has a story, and now a new story takes shape. Wow. It has been so awesome talking to you. We could probably talk all night about I got all kinds of questions about avant-garde fashion and how people do it and how they make it happen, fashion shows. I really want to. I'm going to continue to follow your journey. Unknown Union on
Thank
Instagram, on all
you.
social platforms. UnknownUnion.com. Make sure y'all get out there, check them out, buy these garments. If you're in LA, stop by the Beverly Hills Center, 7th floor. I'm actually going to be there. I'll be in LA for International Women's Day, so I won an
Oh,
award. I'm going to be
exciting.
honored. It'll be in Beverly Hills, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm going to come.
Very cool.
And I'm gonna make a point to make sure I go and check out a store and get and have my unknown union happen, okay? Because I want to be a part of it. All right.
Please
Um,
do.
anything else you would like to share that we didn't cover?
Gosh, no, I think the big thing for us is on top of telling stories, we try and make garments that are for everyone. So, there's no size limit really. We cross all sizes, we cross all genders, we cross all ethnicities. They're really clothes for people. We're humans, right? And that's who we like to dress. So, whatever your style is, I definitely think that there's something that you can relate to. We carry art and books and other things in our store. So just come chat with us, experience, and have those conversations. Even if you don't buy anything, we'd love to meet you and see you.
Oh, awesome. Well, Unknown Union is dressing people in stories, draping stories across your life. All right. So make sure you check it out. Thank you so much for joining us, Jenifer. Y'all keep it locked right here. We'll be right back.